we're able to find folk in the inspections area, recruits a lot more readily than processing. Processing is probably the hardest area for us to find recruits. You know, we're doing a lot of things at the moment to address that. One of the great things we've got going at the moment is our graduate program. So we bring 6 to 8 graduates on every year. But we're in the 3rd year of that now. And it takes them a little while to become fully productive. We rotate them around the team, but the first 6 are coming online and moving into permanent positions, and they're multi-skilled at a high level of competency. So that'll make a difference. So yeah, there's some really great things. I mean, I guess you know, this acceleration's just probably come 6 months too early for me. But you know, we're certainly we've got a lot of things that'll make a big difference.
Thanks for that very thorough answer.
Thank you. Councillor Casey.
One comment and 2 questions. My comment is just to congratulate animal management. That's one of those targets I watch every single time, and that's the first time 100% for urgent dog attacks has been gained, and that's the benefits of in-house. Thank you. 2 questions, and again it's the usual, but it worries me that these figures are still quite high. I'm looking at the complaints that come in. I'm on my page 39. Complaints increased by over 10%. The one that bothers me more than any is our contractor behaved unprofessionally or incompetently. That's 11%, and it's always over 10%. And I want to know what we're doing about that. How do we deal with it? I mean, that's about 135 complaints about our contractors. So who deals with it, and how do we monitor that? The second question is the same table where it says 15% thought our service standard was inadequate or inefficient. Is somebody looking at which areas are substandard or inefficient?
Through the Chair, so the first thing about the increase in the complaints in this last quarter was a spike to do with the rates complaints. So most of the other complaints are pretty static in terms of where they're coming in the departments that they come through. And in answer to your 2 questions around what we're doing, in the last couple of months we've had this new measurement system where we can actually do the root cause, which gives us some further insight into where those complaints are from, what the root cause is, and we're able to start working with the departments on them. I think Dean might be better to answer some of the questions around the contractors, because there's a whole new section within operations that's going to look at how we manage our contracts. So in terms of managing the complaints, we make sure they go to those business units to look at. And yes, indeed, particularly you might have seen, I think we've talked in the past about the waste management, solid waste complaints. We work with that department. We've done some customer-centric design work around how we're actually dealing with the customers. So we design processes, and then the customer feedback from the complaints is used to start looking at what worked and what didn't. Inorganic collections recently, so there's been a lot of feedback around the change in the system. So some of those complaints are to do with that, and if you start digging down into what it is, it's a change in the process, it's a lack of understanding, it's about the way that we've communicated, and with anything new we're learning. So a lot of these things that you're seeing with this root cause is to do with new things that we've introduced, and yes, we do work with the departments, and then it sits with them to start making the changes from the learning.
So we should see that come down?
I think actually I'd say we should see complaints go up as we're starting to get them. we want to get more in there so that we can learn from them. We know that there are things that we don't capture. We know that complaints out to the field staff, for example, that are invisible. We know that a lot of the things are dealt with, even by you and by the local boards. They're not necessarily going into the system, and we're trying to get them in there, which means that we actually have a fairer picture. So at the moment what you see is contractor complaints because they're really easy to understand and see. But some of the other things that are dealt with and resolved, people just move on from them. There's a lot of things I think go directly to officers, so they'll have a transaction in a normal way, and then the complaint goes to them, they deal with it, and we don't see that. So that's what we really want to see, so that we actually understand. If you looked at it with the data that we have, Howick and Ōrākei are the 2 local boards that have the most complaints, but I think that's just that they make it into the system. And in terms of the topics, they're things that rubbish is something that matters to people on a daily basis, so they do call. There's my rubbish sitting with rats and dogs and things like that, so there's something that really pushes them. And what we want is to get all of those other things so that we can have a fair organisational picture of what we should be fixing.
And just one other quick question. I was quite puzzled by the separation out of emails or interactions from solicitors. How do you, why do you differentiate a punter from a solicitor? And what were they all about?
Right. So the reason that that's flagged out in that report is that otherwise the figures will look like the emails have gone down by 10 or 20% year on year because we've actually changed the process. So the system, we've improved it. Process for solicitors, if you think of the number of house sales, every house sale requires a change of the rates, so each party has to pay the correct rates and the solicitors get those. Rather than go through our standard email channel, we've set up a direct system where they go and those are processed in a much shorter time frame.
Queries.
That's usually what they are. So it's the solicitors getting the rate settlement for each house sale. And once we get past that, then it'll be emails year on year will be the same.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a call from the chair of the Hibiscus Bay's local board this morning. She actually rang to tell me that they're going to support a higher UAGC. So 3 out of the 4 boards on the shore are going to be supporting a higher. But anyway, the thrust of the issue was an article in the North Shore Times yesterday which headed up Park Service Standard Changes Anger Boards. And they're really up against it, obviously, and the interesting comment is that we are going to harmonise the standards. Isn't the word more dumbing down? That's what the local boards on the shore see it as, standards, dumbing down the standards. So anyway, the question I want to ask is this. Councillor Walker, Wayne Walker from the Albany ward, was at their meeting last night and he indicated that their board should renegotiate the parks contract so that they can find the funds to do other work. So I want to know, is that correct that they can renegotiate that contract? And if so, how do they go about it?
Point of order, Madam Chair. I was at that meeting. If Mr Wood's going to quote me, I'd prefer it be accurate because I have some point of difference with what his statement is. But I'll just leave that on the table.
That's the answer.
Yeah, without too much detail I can't go into, but what I can advise is that the contracting basis, as you remember, has been broken into regional, sub-regional parts of the entire Auckland area. So at the moment there are 4 regional portions. So the contract negotiations are on a regional basis, but the local boards do have input into the levels of service if they wish to discuss those. And there was a major rollout, Ian Maxwell rolled that through all the local boards, which was about 3 years ago, which was discussing with the local boards the level of services being provided for things like parks maintenance, facilities management and cleaning programs. So there were discussions, but it's not that each local board can go and negotiate with individual contractors, no. They're actually done on a more centralised basis, but the input comes from the local boards when those negotiations are underway.
So the figures that is quoted from the newspaper, it's quoting, and I think the board chairs would be probably just telling it correctly, it's looking about less than 200,000 for each board that they'd be looking for to get their standards back to what they have been. So is it possible for those matters to be negotiated in the new contract rounds? Because I think it's pretty substantial, the contracts, and I just wonder if, you know, we can find something in that area to try and placate the concerns of the local boards who are, you know, grieving as well as their communities, because the boards represent what the feelings of the communities are. And, you know, I hear the same thing from my communities, that they're concerned about the levels of service. So how is that something we can do reasonably soon?
Look, the contract negotiations will be coming up again in from memory, 18 months' time, so there can be discussions around service levels. But the numbers you've quoted based on newspaper representations of what local board chairs said, I can't comment on, so I'm not sure exactly how accurate those are. As Sally's just mentioned, information is the key here. So if we can get quality information.
I've got the information here.
So. Just Kipton may want to comment further. Yeah.
Look, we've many times around this chamber, and certainly with local boards, we've had discussions around how we balance out levels of service across Auckland. And one thing we've discussed many times, both here and in local board chair forums in particular, is we can't afford to lift the level of service to the highest level and ensure consistency that way. So the staff are genuinely trying to sort out where the right level of service lies. You also voted as a governing body to require of us long-term plan savings in the annual budget. Okay, so the staff are once again working with consistency across the region, looking at savings through the long-term plan into annual plan budgets so we can hold rates down, and looking for where those savings lie. So they're trying their best. In terms of the opportunity for local boards to then say, we feel that the direction maybe has gone slightly in the wrong way, and that's certainly the issue that was highlighted in North Shore Times. The major contracts across parks are coming back out for renewal in about 18 months. I think that's correct. And we're having a good hard look at those. So where we can get better value for money and maintain or improve the level of service, we'll always look to do that. But right now, we're working through those issues. So I think we're asking for patience. We want you to understand we're working with good intent to try and maintain a level of service. Those levels of services have been agreed, and we want to look for providing that across the city. There are times, though, when we drop our guard and when things don't go as planned, and we get that feedback. We get it very fast, sometimes from you and certainly from the public, and we'll always look to get it sorted, okay? So that's a different issue. Poor performance is a different issue from consistency across the region.
So will you follow up, will you be, after that article, will you talk to those local boards, or get the people from parks to talk to them?
So we will certainly follow through with that local board cluster, and as a matter of fact, we have local board chairs forum on Monday, and I'm sure that subject will come up.
Okay, thank you.
And
Thank you.
And just a reminder, local boards are coming in Friday week.
Madam
and
Chair.
Monday.
Madam Chair, I just want to know if Dean can just back up the new structure that he's putting in place and around the parks. And this is critical to it because being one that's been vocal on this for the last 5 years to where we're heading to, I'm a liking, and I think that'll put some context to it in regards to the park structure.
Yep.
So we talked about it briefly previously as well, and one of the things I've been doing with the overall operations service delivery team is having a look at how better to organise ourselves to lift productivity, efficiency and ensure consistency of level of service. So in effect what we've done is we brought all those maintenance, renewals, operational activities in terms of maintaining our buildings and our parks and our assets together. And there we expect, because we have brought them together and we're driving that common standards, common approach, we expect to be able to, well, we're focusing on 3 areas. One is delivering on the work plans that we've agreed, regionally and locally, to ensure consistency across our standards, across service levels, sorry. And then we've got efficiency targets we need to achieve as an organisation, and we'll achieve it better when we've got when we're properly organised to do that. So in previous discussions I've undertaken that we want to land that new structure this side of Christmas, which we will. Go live is next Monday, and by the end of the first quarter next year we'll have that properly settled, and I think you'll see problem reducing, and then we can start to focus on increasing performance through efficiency.
Thank you, Dean. Councillor Clow.
Question for Dean, but because Ian's not here. Firstly, Dean, obviously I think just about all the councillors realise the immense pressure that we're all suffering with Auckland's growth, and obviously it's an area in consents and inspections are putting pressure. But on the figures in the report here about non-notified resource consent applications and percentage of building consent applications processed within 20 days, those figures look pretty good comparatively. Are they still, because Ian indicated the biggest area of issue for him is to find people to recruit people to do the actual consents processing. Are we actually sitting at 96% and 97% at the moment?
So yes, we are. That's a real number. In fairness to everybody, so we've got a common understanding here. We are putting a stronger focus on the quality of the original application coming in. So where we get into trouble is we're receiving applications not of sufficient quality. It can then sit longer in that pipeline. So we're putting emphasis at the front, so we don't accept poorer quality applications at the outset. So if we get that gate right, that allows us to maintain that focus on delivering within those statutory time periods. The other measure that we've agreed with the Office of the Auditor General is also not only to focus on that statutory clock, but also look at total elapsed time.